Okay, now we're gonna check out Brett Cooper's take on the Diddy situation and what she's got to say about it.
Happy Memorial Day, everyone. I hope that you are settled in and ready because we have a packed show for you today. First of all, we have to revisit the Senate twink because apparently he has no remorse for screwing in the Senate. We also need to talk about some trans rock climbers who are sending a message to Trump, and we are going to discuss Diddy's connection to the Mafia. So, my friends, the Senate twink is just the gift that keeps on giving, and he just did yet another interview, actually with one of my favorite writers over at New York Magazine, and there is just so much to unpack. Now, if you guys don't remember, we actually talked about this young man just a couple of months ago. We did kind of a recap, what has transpired in his life since that fateful day when he decided that he should have sex in the Senate, but he is back to give us even more juicy information. Before we get into that, make sure that you like this video and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And of course, ring that notification bell to stay up to date on all of our episodes. And as a reminder, I am going on tour this spring. We still have tickets available, and we added 2 new shows in Dallas and in Austin because those were sold out. So if you want to get tickets and come join in on all the fun, you can visit brettcooper.com. So the crux of what we talked about the last time that we covered this young man was the fact that he was asking for privacy, and yet nothing about his life was private at all. In fact, he had created an OnlyFans, and he had changed his Instagram handle to be Senate Twink. He was really trying to build upon this scandal, albeit it was a little late. And so I think that is the purpose of this new interview that he did with New York Magazine. And surprise, he never actually wanted the privacy that he claimed he wanted right after the sex scandal took place. And even bigger surprise, he's actually not sorry at all for doing what he did. In fact, he did it because he was bored. So the article reads, listening to him recount his days getting paid by Congress to do nothing, quote, I would beg the chief of staff or whoever for work. I had nothing to do, is cause enough to wonder whether Elon Musk's blathering about government inefficiency is, on its face, well-founded. What is it that they say about idle hands? Quote, I would come in 9 hours a day, sit there bored out of my effing mind. So yeah, I'm going to entertain myself and F in a room, specifically Part 216. So he was bored. Guys, I mean, why are we even upset at this young man? It was just government inefficiency and he was bored, so what else was he gonna do? I mean, this so reminds me of Denise Richards' daughter, where she was like, I wanted to move out, it was a candy store or OnlyFans. It was sitting at my desk scrolling on TikTok or having sex in the Senate hearing room. I mean, guys, I think that there are things you can do in between these two extremes. I don't know if we've lost nuance in the world, but that's just what I'm feeling right now. Anyway, continuing on with this article, apparently his therapist told him that he was subconsciously
basically there have been
career.
judges and Senate members who have been doing some interesting things in their fucking office.
Throwing everybody else under the bus who has effed in a Senate room. The writer Brock says, quote, in some sense I effed in the Senate because I was miserable and wanted a way out. He's trying to hold no grudges and has no desire to suss out his leaker. Quote, I had a half second where I was like, I know so many people who have effed in the Senate. I could throw people under the bus to water out my own scandal. Excuse me? You know so many people. Like, I understand that we live in a deranged, hypersexual society. I understand that there are things that go on in government. I mean, we all watched the Madison Cawthorn scandal unfold, where he basically said that there were sex parties happening in D.C. with members of Congress. Like, we all saw that happen.
The cocktail parties.
There have been rumors. But now the Senate twink is saying, I literally have names of other people who have done this. That is literally insane. But also, it's 2025, so at this point, nothing should surprise me anymore. Now, in looking at this press tour and this whole interview that he did, and the article is so funny, so you should go read the entire thing, but I can't help but wonder if he's doing this whole press tour and doing the interviews with New York Magazine and New York Post because at the time, he threw away his chance to capitalize on this sex scandal. Because if you guys remember from the previous episode, he cried victim. He said, oh my gosh, all this outrage is homophobia. He checked himself into a mental facility. He moved across the world to Australia to start a new life and then wasn't happy and wasn't making any money. So then a year later, he changed his Instagram name to Senate Twink and tried to start an OnlyFans to kind of capitalize on it, but obviously that wasn't working. So now he's back in our faces trying to kind of rehash things, being very bold and very brazen about it, probably, in my mind, as a marketing strategy for his OnlyFans page. And listen, I am not promoting this in the slightest. You guys know how I feel about OnlyFans and sex workers, but I'm just saying, had he taken this approach a year ago, right after the scandal took place, he would probably be one of the biggest OnlyFans creators on the platform form. He would be an icon in different parts of the world.
Especially
and
if he
yet
did
now
the
he is
scandal.
having to crawl his way back to relevancy thanks to interviews like this, which, you know, are very entertaining to me, so I can't even be mad about it. Now, speaking of twinks, we need to turn our attention to the drag queen and the coalition that is called Trans is Nature, who, guys, they are just truly making a difference in the world, and they are doing
is this
that
the new movement
by
of the
trans
trans
flags
people?
in national parks. And yes, you heard that correctly. Last Tuesday, this coalition of LGBTQ rock climbers under the name Trans is Nature hung a 55-foot trans flag at Yosemite National Park. I mean, guys,
gross.
So brave. I mean, them hanging that flag is even braver than them summiting El Capitan. This is just incredible. Snaps for them. They are truly changing the world. And guys, of course, they did this. They did this incredibly brave thing to send a message to Donald Trump, the big bad orange man. And according to this USA Today article, they did this because they are, quote, done being polite. And thanks to my friends over at Ground News, I know that while this article is very left-leaning, it is also highly factual. Now, Ground News, as always, cuts through the noise with an unbiased perspective.
Hey,
and
I
shows
mean, all
both
he
sides
did
of
was just
every
make
story,
it so that there's
prioritizing
only two
honesty over
genders,
everything.
male
Their
and
unique
female.
technology even allows users to compare how different
That's all he
sides of the
did.
corporate media are
And
reporting
then he
on a
said,
certain
"Get
story,
the hell
making
out
sure
of
that you see all sides and truly stay informed." And
trans
from my
people
perspective,
should get
they
the
make sure
fuck
that I
out
stay on
of
top of all
girls'
the stories that I'm
sports.
covering so that I
That's
can bring you the
basically
latest
it.
and most honest updates. Now, in addition to that, one thing that I love is that Ground News' blind spot feed brings you the stories that have gotten little to no
And
coverage on
women's
either
sports,
side of
too,
the aisle,
sorry.
making sure that you always stay informed
Forgot to
instead
add
of
that
letting
one
big
in.
tech or their algorithms decide what you see. So if you are truly ready to break free from media bias and stay informed with transparent news consumption, now is the time to join Ground News. And when you go to groundnews.com/Brett or scan the QR code on the screen, you can get the same premium plan that I use, but for nearly half the price. That is groundnews.com/Brett if you want to get unbiased news and hold the media accountable
There
for
you
only
go.
$5.
There's a lot of people who do
just take a look
fucking
at the individual who
Ground
went up there
News,
and hung this flag.
We carry the largest trans
Jesus,
pride
what the
flag
fuck?
to ever be flown in a national park, and unfurled it on the side
other
of El
people have
Cap
more
to prove
Ground
a
News
point that trans is
codes,
natural.
creator
The
codes.
Trump administration and transphobes.
Did you see what was written on that flag? Fly higher than hate. Oh.
No one's gonna
so
be able to
profound.
see
Thank you.
that.
That
Like,
being
what?
trans is unnatural, but species that can transition sexes can be found on every continent and in every ocean on planet Earth. So call it a
this
protest,
person is named
call it a
Gay.
celebration. We are
I'm
bringing
guessing they
elevation
changed their
to
name to be
liberation.
that.
So every trans person knows that they have people that love them in their corner. The people united will never be defeated.
Okay,
Dude,
well, the
we
people
get it.
united might
Jesus
never
Christ.
be defeated, but your flag will be defeated because this is completely and utterly ridiculous. And also, my
Yeah,
favorite
it is
part of the entire
ridiculous.
video is where the drag queen is like hugging that girl and is going, "This is so natural." Meanwhile,
They're
he's in an
basically like
entire
this,
full
right? They're basically like those people of we're here, we're gay, we're proud, we get used to it, right? Those crowds of people.
full beat of drag queen makeup.
Fucking-
That's literally
Yes,
the most
we get it.
unnatural thing I've ever
you
heard
like
of. You have
telling
this
us
beautiful,
that you
rugged,
like being
natural
trans.
landscape,
We get it.
and
How
you're
many
sitting here
times do you
pretending
have
to
to
be a
fucking
woman
keep
with
saying
insane
it?
makeup on? Like, I'm sorry, you're just not going to convince us otherwise. So kind of backing into this story, that individual that you saw on the screen, the one with the full beat of makeup, that is one of Time Magazine's Next Generation Leaders and National Geographic's Change Makers, and that would be drag queen Patagonia, aka Win Wiley. And guys, if that individual and that name sounds familiar, it is because at this rate, I don't even know how many episodes I have done about him. Like, genuinely, Patagonia seems to pop up every year around springtime in a different national park, in a different huge drag queen outfit, working with a different brand, simply to promote his agenda. And the agenda is always that trans is
The
so
trans
natural. It is
stuff.
as natural
Hey,
as
look,
these
you're
national
watching
parks,
my
and they
wife.
deserve
She's
a
married.
place
What the
in
fuck
the
are you
national
talking
parks.
about,
And it's
brother?
so hilarious to me because no one is saying you don't have a place in nature.
Your
You are
wife?
literally
Yeah,
free to
right.
go hang that insane flag in Yosemite National Park. You are free to frolic in dresses and full makeup and film your videos in the middle of national parks for years now. You work with brands like the North Face, so I'm sorry
What you doing
if I
here,
don't
little
believe
boober?
that you are
What's up?
genuinely, truly oppressed. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Now, the other ridiculous thing that we need to talk about that you probably heard in this video is that this coalition's mission is to promote the idea that transgenderism is naturally occurring in nature through various species. It's not
Wait,
just
what?
naturally occurring in humans.
Oh, it's these people. They're trying. Are these the people that they were trying to somehow research animals and their transgenderism bullshit?
But, guys, other animals and other plants change their gender literally for the sole purpose of reproduction. It is a scientific transformation. If you change your gender, you cannot reproduce. That is not something that happens naturally, no matter which way you cut it. That was a bad joke, but you get what I'm saying. But what I'm trying to say is that it's not like these fish and these plants are going off to surgeons to get a fake, beautifully made vagina. Beautiful is an overstatement. Your custom boutique vagina from your plastic surgeon. The last thing that I will say is that obviously this caused an uproar on social media, and everybody was pointing the finger at the park itself, at Yosemite, saying that they had okayed this, that it was a political statement that Yosemite was making, but that is not the case at all. I am here to defend Yosemite National Park. The park was quick to ask for the flag to be removed. I think it was already taken down, thank God, because Yosemite does not need to be embroiled in political debates about gender identity.
It's a fucking national park
truly
for
are
nature.
for everyone, regardless of your background, your gender, your age, whoever you are, you can go and enjoy it, and that should be the message. Now, on a more serious note, I think it is time that we turn our attention back to Diddy. Week 2 of the trial has ended, and we have a lot of updates. So as I said in my last Diddy episode, the defense was obviously going to make it seem like Cassie was a willing participant in all of this and all of the freak-offs, and that is exactly what they did. This team of lawyers, as we discussed, is just full of
that's what they're trying to say, that she was a willing participant.
They did not tone it down at all when they were cross-examining
I mean,
Cassie Ventura,
I hate to say it, but in a sense, she kind of is. She was in a relationship with Diddy, right? She put herself in that position.
If you guys are following the story now, is Diddy's longtime ex-girlfriend. And throughout their cross-examination, they were focusing in on one specific thing, and that was the text messages between Diddy and Cassie. Here is one example. This is from 2012. Combs told Cassie that he wanted to FO one last time tonight using initials for freak off, FO. Cassie replied, what? And Combs said, you can't read? And then Cassie replied, I don't want to freak off for the last time. I want it to be the first time for the rest of our lives. Here's another exchange they brought up. This one was from August of 2009. Combs asked when she wanted the next encounter to be.
Yeah,
and
basically,
she replied,
she got torched on cross.
2 days later, Cassie sent an explicit message,
but at the
and
same
he replied
time,
in eager anticipation. She responded, me too. I just want it to be uncontrollable. Combs' lawyers have insisted that all of the sex at the freak-offs was completely consensual. Later that year, however, she also sent Combs messages that she was frustrated
the whole
with the state of their
premise of
relationship and needed
the court
something more from
trial,
him than
right,
just
is to
sex.
get
So,
Diddy on,
obviously,
RICO,
we know that their
sex
relationship was
trafficking,
incredibly
all,
sexual.
right,
We
all
know that
those
it was
charges
volatile, and we do have
that
these
they
texts.
piled
Like,
onto
everybody can see these. She talked about them in her cross-examination, and in my personal opinion, I feel like it's going to be hard for the
I don't
defense
think
to
they'll
contradict
get
everything
RICO,
that the
but they'll probably
prosecution has
get
brought forward that
sex
demonstrates
trafficking
that he
and
was
all other
blackmailing
stuff
her
like
and
that.
that she was terrified of him. And so using her text messages that show that she was saying
'Cause
that she
to
likes
get
the freak
RICO
offs
is so
doesn't
fucking
necessarily
hard.
mean that it was all completely consensual. If she was truly scared for her life and actually being blackmailed in the way that we have been told that she was blackmailed. And of course she's not going to push back against him or do anything to make him angry when we have now seen the kind of man that he is and the things that he would threaten to do to her. I mean, if the only evidence was her word versus these text messages, that would be one thing that would make it a lot more complicated. But we know at this point that it's not. And the prosecution only strengthened their argument about this blackmail, about this power imbalance, when Cassie's mom, Regina Ventura, took the stand, and she testified that
Diddy
Combs,
was trying
in
to
anger
blackmail
over
her.
one of his
That's
and Cassie's many breakups, threatened to release one of these freak-off videos of Cassie if they did not give him $20,000. And so her parents were trying to protect her. They frantically took out a $20,000 loan to send him the money. They never spoke to him. They just wanted to protect her. But like, those are the types of things that he would do and what he would hold over her. So is that actually consensual? I think that is something that the jury is just going to have to decide. Now, in addition to Cassie's mother, we also saw some other new faces take the stand, including close friends and collaborators of Cassie's. But before we get into their testimony, which is just heartbreaking, I do want to take a break to tell you about my sponsor, 7 Weeks Coffee. Now, 7 Weeks Coffee is Alex's and my go-to coffee that we literally drink every single day. Now, as you guys know, we're very picky about what ingredients we bring into our home.
Wait, her husband's name is Alex? Oh god, that's weird.
It is pesticide-free, acid, and it is organically farmed.
That's fucking weird.
We love to support.
I don't like
America's
that.
pro-life coffee
That's
company on a mission to help
awkward.
fund the pro-life movement, one cup of coffee at a time. They donate 10% of every sale
Please
to
don't say your husband's name
And
again.
at this point, they have raised over $900,000
That's
for
really
47
awkward.
and saved thousands of lives. And the reason why they're called 7 Weeks Coffee is because at 7 weeks, a baby is the size of a coffee bean. They truly make an incredible product, and I love that I can stand behind both the ingredients, the product, and the values of this incredible company. So if you're ready to make the switch, go to 7weekscoffee.com/Brett and save 15% off forever when you subscribe. Plus, get a free gift with your order. And exclusively for my viewers,
I kind of wish I had my name changed
now.
out.
10% off your first order. That is a 25% Total savings.
I mean, don't
on
get me
your first
wrong.
order
Brett
plus a
Cooper
free gift.
is
Just use code BRETT
a
at checkout.
good-looking
The other staple of my
gal,
morning routine is my skincare. And I'm so excited to be promoting new skincare again. Now, you guys have been around for the long haul. You probably remember I worked with them years ago. It was one of my first ever sponsors. It's been so amazing to watch their mission and their company grow. And since the last time we worked together, they launched a brand new, clean line of high-powered products made with ingredients that you can trust and feel great about putting on your body's largest organ, your skin. And just this month, they have introduced the beginnings of their body care collection. Now, I started using Nimi again at the beginning of this year after getting pregnant because my hormones obviously have been going crazy. I was getting terrible acne. I was struggling to keep my skin under control. I decided I should probably start washing my face with something other than just my micellar water. And they totally changed the game for me, and they got my skin back on track, literally, guys, within days. And Nimi Skincare is more than just skincare. Their company also represents amazing values, and their products are proudly made in the USA. So because of that, they're not forced to increase their prices when tariffs and costs rise, so you can always trust that you are getting equate value. So if you're ready to make the switch, take Nimi's simple skincare quiz on their website. Nimi Skincare routine curated just for your skin type and concerns. Head on over to nimiskincare.com. That is NIMI Skincare.com.
Are you... Holy shit, this is like her longest ad read.
Here is one instance of abuse that her best friend witnessed, and she took the stand, and Morgan, her name, testified that the second incident took place in Jamaica in 2013, where they were on a group vacation.
NPR.
She said that while Cassie was using the bathroom, Combs became angry that she was taking too long and set out to find her. Morgan then allegedly heard guttural screams and ran to the hall to find Combs dragging Cassie outside by her hair. Outside, she allegedly managed to get up, and Combs then pushed her onto the ground, where she hit her head on the bricks. Morgan testified that she believed Cassie was knocked out, but her friend later ran into the woods barefoot. Morgan said that when she found Cassie, she hid in a ditch for what felt like hours while Combs searched the property for them. I mean, guys, at every turn, all the stories that we hear are horrifying. Like, I think we know now the kind of relationship that this was. But again, even though we're hearing all of these stories, I do want to clarify that this case isn't about abuse. It is about the racketeering. It is about sex trafficking. And so stories like this obviously give us insight into his character. They support everything else, but this isn't what he's being charged
Yeah, well, I mean,
for.
he's
now,
being charged on,
these friends,
right,
Cassie's
the
mom,
sex
a man named
trafficking.
George
Right, he's
Kaplan
being
also
charged on those
testified. That
stuff
is Diddy's
too.
former assistant.
Yeah.
And this one actually does really give legs to the racketeering charge, because he would set up hotel rooms for Diddy, he would pick up drugs for Diddy, paying for all of them in cash, and he also testified that Diddy constantly threatened his job. And so what I'm seeing here is we are now moving outside of just Cassie. Obviously, this is where the lawsuit started. This is what really brought attention to everything that Diddy was doing. But again, it is going to get so much bigger than just this relationship. Now, this federal case does stem from Cassie's 2023 lawsuit, which we talked about last week. But even though this case is about a very particular set of charges, I do think that we should quickly look at the other civil suits that are up against Diddy. After Cassie's very public lawsuit,
he also,
24-hour
he has,
settlement that, again, we
this
talked
is
about
his
last
criminal
week,
case?
70
Wait,
other
I forgot, criminal case or civil case?
Now,
criminal
to give you guys a
case,
timeline,
and
Diddy's
then the
house was
other
raided
ones
in
are
March
civil.
of last year, so this was 2024. In September, he was arrested and he was charged, and there were 9 lawsuits that were filed before his house was raided. There were 5 in between his house being raided and him being arrested, and then over 50 different lawsuits have been filed since his arrest.
So
now, around 5 of these
I'm
lawsuits
thinking
alleged
they're
the victim
probably
was a minor
going
at the time of
to
the incident. Most of these accusers are
put
female,
those
but there
in
are
a
quite
bucket
a few men
together,
that have also come
and
forward in
I
these
don't know.
suits. And what has
He would
possibly
have
been an even bigger
so many
conversation than
fucking
anything else we're
trials he has
talking
to go
about
through.
is that some of these lawsuits are also against other celebrities, which is not the case in this federal lawsuit. They are not involved in Cassie and Diddy. This is just about Diddy. Now, the most notable of these lawsuits is the case that was brought against Diddy and Jay-Z for drugging and raping a girl when she was 16 years old. A third female celebrity who
I'm
has
pretty
not been
sure
named
this was
allegedly
cleared
stood
already.
by and watched, but she was not included in that lawsuit. And this lawsuit has now been dropped. That came out in December, at the beginning of December. Aaron Hall is involved in another lawsuit from a woman who alleges that the two of them, Diddy and Aaron, raped her, and Diddy then choked her. In another lawsuit, Diddy's first employee at Bad Boy Records, a music producer, is being accused of gang raping a 17-year-old girl with Diddy and another celebrity that has not been named. Rodney Jones Jr., aka Lil Rod, has accused Diddy of grooming him and then passing him off to actor Cuba Gooding Jr., who has already pleaded guilty to forcible touching in a previous case. And then, guys, this is even crazier to me. 2 of Diddy's sons are named in separate lawsuits against them and Diddy for sexual abuse. Those are his sons, Justin and Christian. Lucian Grange, this is Sophia Richie's father-in-law. He is the CEO of Universal Music Group. He was also named as a defendant in a lawsuit for aiding and abetting Diddy's sex trafficking and racketeering, although his involvement was dropped from that specific suit. OBJ has been named in one of the most shocking lawsuits when a young woman claims that she was gang raped by Diddy, OBJ, and other men after she accused Diddy of killing Tupac. I mean, there's so much here. And so the public is thinking about all of these cases. We have read articles about all of this. And so even me, like, going into this huge 8-week-long trial, I was like, oh my gosh, it's all coming out. This is everything. But it's not. Like, this isn't like Epstein, where there was a possibility for everything to come out in that one big case. It is just about Diddy and Cassie. And this has understandably made this case very confusing because people, like myself, were mixing these civil suits with what he is being charged with right now.
Yeah,
federally.
no,
I mean, when Diddy was
this
first
is
arrested,
completely
we all saw the
separate.
pictures
This is
of
a
his
separate
notorious white
thing.
parties. They began
Those
flooding the
other
airwaves,
things
and
he's
people were
being
claiming
charged
that
with, those
all
are
the
going to
people
be
who were in
separate
those
from-
photos that
yeah.
attended those parties
They're all
were actually
separate.
attending freak-offs. The white parties were the freak-offs.
I don't know
Everyone
how
in the
they're going to
photos
do
was
the other.
implicated
I
in
don't
all
know
of
if they're
these
going to
cases.
group
I
up
mean,
the other
similarly, everybody
civil
immediately started saying that
cases
Justin
because
Bieber had been
some of them
sex
are
trafficked by him.
almost the
The
same.
internet began spiraling, quickly spinning
some of the
rumors
same
into
shit
truth.
he
We had
was
no
doing,
idea
like,
what
some
was
of the
going
same
on.
shit to
And
people.
from what I heard, just because obviously I had been talking to some people close to Bieber, based on what I have heard from that camp and what Bieber has now said in a public statement, he was not sexually abused by Diddy. And so I just want to say that here once and for all. Now I do want to take a step back
Wait,
because
people
we
thought
all
he was
saw
sexually
the videos,
abused by
we watched
Diddy? Why?
Justin grow up, and so I think we can
Oh,
say
because
that,
of the freak-offs
was
thing?
Justin put in uncomfortable positions as a young man? Yes, absolutely. Was
Probably,
he
yeah.
sexualized by the media and the music industry as a whole? Yes. Was
Yeah.
he asked or
Well,
pushed
yeah.
to engage in
I mean, he was a
spiritually
young
dangerous and
fucking
immoral
adult
activities?
when
Yes.
he made
Those
his
aren't rumors. I've
music
actually
career.
heard that from
Well,
people,
he was
but
a young
he denies
teen.
that even though that might have happened,
And then
he
he's
denies
a
that he
young
was a
adult.
Diddy victim. Now,
He
it's also
fucking
important
had
to
the
note, kind of in
world
light of
around
talking
him,
about everything
right?
with Justin and how this industry operates, that Diddy is just the tip of the iceberg. And most people out there, including myself, do not believe that he acted alone, not just with his freak-offs, but with the degradation of this industry as a whole. I mean, think about all the names that we just mentioned in those 63 lawsuits. And guys, interestingly, there is one person that just keeps getting brought up time and time again, and he also just keeps getting away with it. And that man would be Clive Davis, the aging, very much aging co-founder
agent.
of Bad Boy Records.
Yeah.
Now, before we get into how
The
insane this story
co-founder,
is and
the
giving you
owner.
the backstory, I just need to paint
The
a picture
CEO,
for
if you will.
because when all of this started, this was a very, very different time.
co-CEO.
So imagine that we are all in the 70s, and the government has just begun cracking down on organized crime because the RICO Act was signed into law in 1970. So why did this act come about? Well, the Mafia had infiltrated all of the big industries, and the music industry for the Mafia was a no-brainer, including jukebox plays, record sales, nightclub entry fees, and it gave mob bosses the ability to control and extort labels and artists through these avenues, including distribution through jukeboxes, control of the venues where artists got to perform. All of that, they had their hands in everything. And another part of this, something that the mob also had their hands in, was referred to as indies. Now, these indies were people, and they were people who were hired by labels to secure airplay for songs, often using cash and gifts, drugs, or other incentives that would get the radio stations to play these certain songs. And this was not something that the record labels were doing overtly. They had to do this through third parties because this was actually illegal. It was illegal to pay for airtime without disclosing it, and this was called payola. So now that you have that context, we can introduce you to Clive Davis. Now, this is the man that is behind some of the world's most iconic bands and artists throughout the entire music industry, and he is also the man behind Diddy's rise. I mean, this man has worked with everybody from Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Chicago, Santana, Billy Joel, Bruce Springsteen, Aerosmith, Earth, Wind, and Fire, Neil Diamond, my personal favorite. I used to fall asleep to him every single night growing up. Pink Floyd, Whitney Houston, Alan Jackson, Brooks and Dunn, Brad Paisley, Usher, Outkast, and Pink. But, you know, in the 70s, he was the music industry. If you were somebody who was working with Clive Davis, it was almost a sure bet that you were going to be successful. Now, Clive started
he
his
was
career
basically
at Columbia
the
Records, and he
salesman for the
quickly rose
music
to the top
records
because of
and
his talent and
labels
his
and stuff.
eye for music, and
He
all thanks to
created
Clive
them,
Davis himself.
basically.
Columbia Records was a powerhouse in the 70s, and their revenue was up significantly. One article from around that time says that rock has moved from only 15% of Columbia's volume to more than 50%, and CBS
that's
record
why
sales
Disney
have risen from
has such
170
a
million to
stranglehold on
340
fucking
million
right
each year.
those
Clive Davis was able to win over top talent by paying well and offering
those
considerable
movies and
artistic freedom.
stuff,
John
right?
Phillips of the Mamas and Papas said, quote, "He always sent the
Because
limousines and the flowers at the
when was
right
it back
time."
in
So
the,
everything
right back
for
in those
Clive and
days?
Columbia
Yeah,
Records
They
was
were
looking
huge.
up. The music industry was
1930s, right?
changing daily,
Or
all
whatever.
thanks to Clive. And then in May, in 1973, Clive Davis was abruptly fired after a Columbia Records internal investigation.
A lot
Now,
of the
Columbia has publicly
Hollywood,
stated the reason
a lot
for
of these
termination of contract
industries,
early
right,
was that he
withstood
was
a lot of
misappropriating
fucking
funds.
a lot
But
of shit.
everyone in the music industry who was clued in that knew Clive knew that it had to be more than that. Take a look at this Time article from 1973. They said, others in the records business, where expense money is thrown around, doubted that the CBS charges against Davis could be the full explanation. To them, the action against Davis seems unduly harsh in an industry that abounds in stories of much worse transgressions, chiefly the providing of drugs to rock groups and disc jockeys. Quote, if we had somebody really important who wanted dope, we would probably give it to him, says a vice president of one of CBS's biggest competitors. I think Davis is taking the rap for everybody. Now, in addition to all of that and those theories, looking through news articles from around the time, it is very obvious that Columbia was being investigated
if you wanted
for
this person
payola,
to
as this internal investigation was happening with Clive Davis. In fact, here's a headline from that year that reads, Clive Davis ousted,
everybody
payola
loves
cover-up
this
charge.
person.
Columbia Records president
Everybody
is fired
would
from CBS
look
amid allegations of misuse of funds and providing
everybody
drugs
saw this person in
to
a room,
artists
they would want
and
an
disc
autograph.
jockeys.
Right,
Now,
in a
the
sense.
rumor at the time, and sort of still is that Columbia used Davis as a cover-up so that the company would not be investigated further. This man was the fall guy. They were basically saying, there is nothing to see here. Yes, our president was funneling money, but that was just for personal reasons. Nothing to see here. He was most definitely not working with the mafia, doing payola, or supplying people with drugs. And guys, you also need to understand how big being charged with payola with something like this could have been. Like, Columbia Records would not have survived that scandal. And again, this was not something that was hush-hush. Another article from around the time reads that the government is probing an elaborate scheme in which Columbia and perhaps other record companies may have been bilked of many millions of dollars. Columbia Records alone reportedly lost
some of
$2
these
million.
industries are
Investigators trying
built
to find
on
out
dirty
whether the
money.
Mafia had got a firm foothold in the record industry, or
given
whether
what the
Columbia
fuck,
Records
some of
scandal
these
was an
industries were so
isolated
fucking
incident.
cutthroat.
Now, here is where the Mafia ties really begin. So, a month before Clive was fired, one of his employees, one of his close associates, was also fired for misappropriation of funds, and his office was interestingly sealed for investigation. And this man had been more directly linked to the mob, specifically the Genovese crime family. And it's all written about in another article from 1973. So this one reads, the first rumors had begun to fly during, quote, a week to remember. David Winshaw, 52, vice president of artist relations at Columbia, had been busted. He had been locked out of his 12th floor office a couple of weeks ago, and there was talk about prostitution and drugs. The FBI, the rumors said, had invaded CBS's black skyscraper and seized files from Winshaw's office, and CBS had cordoned off the room and fired the 11-year veteran. Winshaw, it was said, was close to Clive Davis and was variously known around the company and in the business as Davis's royal procurer, or Clive's pimp, or the all-around Dr. Feelgood. He had, the hearsay went, been moved over to special projects and took care of conventions, providing any necessary entertainment for Columbia executives and favored guests. Now David Winshaw, unlike Clive, did serve a year in prison. And his story seemed
dances,
to kind of die down there until
nice
2021
dances.
when Winshaw gave another interview. And in this interview, he said that everyone knew he took the fall for Clive Davis. Federal investigators who had launched an ultimately fruitless search for evidence of payola would allege that Winshaw had conspired with a member of the Genovese crime family to defraud CBS of $75,000 through sham bills from non-existent companies, a scheme that earned Winshaw a 1-year jail sentence. Nobody has suggested that Davis knew a thing about the involvement of the mob, though skeptics contend that a micromanager like Clive Davis had to know about the invoices that Winshaw drafted. According to Winshaw, there is little doubt on the matter. Now 80 years old and living in Florida, he said in a brief phone interview that, quote, everyone knows I took the fall for Davis. How does a man run a bar mitzvah that he doesn't know about? The circumstances of his exit, Winshaw says, ruined me, though he still admires Davis's talents. I have no animosity. The guy doesn't want to know me. That's fine. Looking back, some former colleagues say that CBS got spooked by the payola investigation and jettisoned Davis, hoping to mollify the government and stave off penalties that might jeopardize its broadcasting licenses. And guys, the reason why I did this entire history lesson on the music industry in the 70s and Clive Davis and Columbia Records is because it is simply so wild to me that while David served a year in prison for all of this, Clive walked away free and maintained his career. And then, many years later, in 1994, he fatefully started Bad Boy Records with none other than P. Diddy. Now, to bring it all back to the case at hand and the freak-offs, we don't know how
just look at
Clive
Ezra
was
Miller.
with Diddy's
still fucking,
affairs.
right?
We can just put it that way. But we do know that
Look
Clive
at
was
fucking
responsible
Amber
for
Heard.
starting
Oof.
Diddy's career and that they were very close friends. And so it's fair and it's very valid for all of us to wonder why and how P. Diddy was able to get away with all of these crimes for so long and what led him down such a dark, twisted path. And it's just interesting, whether it's related to Diddy's cover-ups or not, that his mentor, his confidant, his close friend, his business partner, was tied to one of the biggest payola scandals in music industry history and has walked away scot-free from crimes, also including tax evasion, for his entire very long life. And I mean, hey, maybe Diddy just learned from the best. Now, while a lot of this is unverified, a lot of people think that it goes even deeper than that, even darker than that. A lot of people in the music industry have spoken out about this relationship. For example, Suge Knight, who is a rapper who is in prison for manslaughter, has claimed multiple times over the years that music executives, including Clive Davis, have used sexual abuse, drugs, and alcohol
what was it? Tupac?
to control
I forgot.
their
It
artists.
was either
Take a listen
Tupac
to this
or
clip from a
Biggie.
recent interview he did with Chris
I think
Cuomo.
it was Tupac.
To me, that sounds like what I hear when people are talking about abusive situations, you know, hurt people, that someone was sexually abused, they wind up being a perpetrator. Is that what you're suggesting about Sean Combs, that he was sexually abused and he now sexually abuses?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think he repeat what was done to him. And like I said, if you look at Russell Simmons, you know the truth. Andre Rail, you know the truth. Clyde Davis, you know the truth. Jimmy Iovine, you know the truth. The industry is a quick business. It's been like that for a long time. And the casting couch is real.
I mean, look, all of these people put on fucking
which
masks.
was done 7 months ago,
Right?
he
I hate to
offered
say it.
horrifying examples of what that looked like. For example,
Right,
Knight
all the
claimed that Diddy was, quote,
I don't want
taught
to say
by the
all the
people before
actors,
him,
but some
and
of
he
them
did to
do
the
put
younger
on some
people
fucking
after him.
masks. Right?
Quote, it is an industry that, according to Knight, has a
Especially
long history of
the
sexually
ones
abusing
that
and
got
assaulting
into
its newest
bed with
members.
like
He
Harvey
said one
Weinstein
practice
and
called
shit
an
sometimes.
egg
Right?
test went as follows. And just for warning, this is insane, but he says, quote, those guys pull their pants down and bent over. They stick the egg up their ass, their eggs break. They say they're not ready yet. They ain't put enough work in. This is Hollywood. And then he goes on to say that the only place where you would put in the work so that your egg wouldn't break was at these types of parties. I can't, it's like, guys,
Yep.
it's so insane.
Hollywood
And yet
parties.
we're hearing this from so many people. Like, at this point, it can't be a conspiracy that this is how Hollywood and these entertainment industries run. And guys, in every one of these stories, from people other than just
That
Suge Knight,
lavish
in every
lifestyle,
story,
right?
Clive Davis gets brought up. His influence even made its way to Sean Ryan's
Or the
podcast.
rich and
Now, of course,
wealthy.
over the years, Clive Davis's team has denied all of these
to get all
allegations. They say that he
to
knew
do
nothing,
the
that he
to
was
do the
never involved. And
prostitution
these days, he
thing, to
plays
do
the
the
role of the
escort
geriatric
thing,
old man
right?
who
To
just
get drugs,
won't answer questions.
alcohol.
A lot of people are curious about the status of P. Diddy.
Status of what?
P. Diddy. Diddy.
Who?
Puppy. The status of
Puffy.
As
Oh,
we've learned from
Puffy.
Justin Bieber and others like him, the abuse and the blackmail and the control happening within the music industry and Hollywood runs deep. And this story is still only
Puffy.
getting started. So next week, we will be back for another Diddy update because the trial is still ongoing. And also, we haven't even gotten into the beef between Diddy, Tupac, Suge Knight, and Biggie that led to the murder of 2 of those men.
Is this an ad?
Do you remember everything that
Oh yeah,
you
it's a
put all
movie.
of us through the last
it's a
time
movie
you
ad.
rode? You will not get on that ball.
Well, then what are we gonna do about Cody?
I'm gonna be okay, Mom.
$750,000 for first place. You got a better idea? I'm all ears.
We've got some incredible news. The
Bull
rodeo
riot.
legend will compete for the first time in years.
Give me the green light! Joe Wainwright,
Wow, this is so American.
3-time world
Ah,
rides again. It's gonna be big.
So there you have it. Apparently, oh yeah, isn't Brett Cooper a part of some kind of like network? So they,
He's got to earn money.
she's like promoting their movies or something.
Hold my seat. I only ask once. Yeah, very. Be patient with her. She loves you fiercely.
And Joe Wainwright, keep up.
I'm fine. Of course you will. That's a genuine true legend right there.
Here we go.
Come on, Joe, get it! Get it!
Angel.com Brett. Oh, there you go. There you have it. Brett's basically take on everything that's been happening. Basically Diddy and Mafia, so we had the Senate twink, the rock climber that put up that fucking flag for some reason. And then the whole Diddy, like a lot of the Diddy trial, right, going through what's been happening. But yeah. Brett Cooper, everybody. Take a look if you want to watch her.